My name is Tanya. I am 38 and I live in Bulgaria. I'm a psychiatric hospital survivor. I have been inpatient almost 50 times and have seen, heard, and gone through things no one deserves to be submitted to. It is important to talk about what people go through while being patients in psychiatric hospitals and other institutions, for no patient even knows they have rights, let alone knows what their rights are. For instance, electroshock therapy and being physically restrained to the bed is not simply a violation of patients' rights. Those are sheer forms of torture. And patients are not aware of that either. And last but not least, I never knew whom to talk to about what I was going through. It is very important to talk about all the things that happen at mental health clinics and small group homes so that as many people as possible become aware of what patients go through, and also because people who can do something to make things better can find out what is happening there. If those who have been there say nothing, then there is no way to make things better. I lived in a small group home for a while, so I'm going to share my personal experience about my stay in it. I went to live there by my own will in an attempt to escape the stressful situation at home. And the person who told me about this was a doctor from the mental health clinic in which I had gone for treatment. They informed me what paperwork I had to do and how much I would have to pay if I got any benefits from the country. I was told I would be better off there, for I would become more independent, would learn to take proper care of myself, and would live with people who would be able to relate. I had no idea what things would be like before I moved in. The small group home actually turned out to be a small apartment, and there were 5 more women who lived there, for they had nowhere else to go. I have a very long and traumatic history of domestic violence and other sorts of violence, so I went to that group home in an attempt to escape the stress. There were a total of 3 rooms, 2 balconies, and a bathroom. 2 of the rooms were used as bedrooms, and they had 3 beds each and a nightstand beside each bed. Also, there was 1 wardrobe in each of them. I remember the bedrooms were very small and we had no private space. In the kitchen, we had a table, chairs, a stove, and a microwave. Also, we had a daily agenda that was not made by us, but we had to keep it to avoid problems with the staff. We had to get up at a certain time, make breakfast, eat, and go to a sort of a rehab center where we did different arts and crafts and made lunch. I don't remember who decided what we would cook, but it wasn't us. We had to leave the center in the afternoon and go back to the small group home where we took turns cooking dinner. At the beginning of each month, a staff member made a list of the groceries and bought them, but we didn't get to choose what would be on that grocery list. We had a laundry machine and took turns using it. I don't remember if using it was free or not, though I think we were not allowed to use it every day. A nurse visited us on a daily basis to hand out our meds, and a psychologist came probably once or twice a month to help us deal with everything we were facing. I don't think a doctor ever visited us during my stay, which was about half a year. We were not allowed to go out without the permission of a staff member, and when we did have their permission, they told us when to come back, and we were not allowed to have visitors either. The only thing that we could choose was what clothes to wear. There was no staff member with us 24/7, or at least during the night in case of an emergency. I didn't know whom to call if any of the other women or I needed help right then and there. I felt guilty, useless, hopeless, and helpless. If I was emotional, there was no professional to talk to immediately. I think I mentioned it once to a staff member, and they were like, "You should be thankful you are even here." That made the feeling of guilt even stronger. It was like I was taking the place of someone else who needed to live there more than I did. At some point, I started feeling selfish. I remember a night during which I woke up because it was hard for me to breathe. We did have a phone, but I was sure that even if I did call for an ambulance, I would be dead before it arrived. I still can't say what triggered that panic attack, but I do remember the fear I would be gone in 5 minutes or so. I wouldn't get to hear my mom's voice for the last time. But back to the reasons why I chose to move into that small group home. I was subjected to domestic violence since I was 5, and what is worse, I didn't realize I was a victim back then, and no one told me what was actually happening to me. I was looking for a way to get away from all that violence and the terrible stress it caused. No one in the small group home helped me realize I was a victim, and no one referred me to a therapist or to a help center to help me get out of the situation, which was full of violence. Instead, they kept giving me stronger medications to help me be more patient and suffer in silence. Back then, it felt like the mental health clinics and the small group home were the smaller evil. I had no privacy at home and at the clinics, so it hit me really hard when I went to the small group home, and it turned out that there was no way to have any sort of privacy there either. I ran away from something bad to end up at a place where things were worse, and I didn't dare complain because I had gone there by my own will. The rules that we had at the small group home were very restraining, limited our freedom, and were practically a form of violence. At the same time, there were no rules that could make the restraining rules less restraining. It was like I was going in circles all the time, and I am talking about the cycle of violence that changed forms, but it never stopped being violence. Trying to make things better by moving to live at that small group home was an epic failure. I had less privacy and stronger stress despite it being different from the stress I had at home. I didn't become more independent either. Instead of sending people to such group homes, society has to start recognizing violence that people who have psychosocial difficulties are being victims of and explain this to us. We need to be taught ways to overcome stress and be provided with a safe and a violence-free environment. We need professionals who can offer us access to legal help and emotional support. We need to be a part of society instead of being isolated, avoided, or even hidden in those small group homes. We need help to learn to distribute the money we have and be taught to make priorities like buying medications, food, and paying our bills instead of buying things we don't really need. At that small group home, I met people whose lives were more painful than mine, but they couldn't count on anyone. I am blessed to have people who support me, and I'm growing out of this. I have no idea how many people deteriorate and lose their lives because they don't have any support, have no touch with the outside world, and suffer in silence in those institutions. And no matter how many they are non existent to the outside world. I would like to make a plea, finish the speech. Please do not call people who have psychosocial difficulties crazy. Don't laugh out loud when we pass by you, and keep in mind we are not the way we are because of something good. Our health problems are caused by horrible events. People don't get, please don't get your pleasure from more pain. For you have your demons you're trying to chase down, and you have your skeletons in your closet too. I don't wish to anyone to start having psychosocial difficulties or any other health problem, though the truth is no one is insured against anything, and any of us may need to use a wheelchair at some point or be treated with chemotherapy in the future. It is human to be vulnerable, but it is not human to use one's vulnerability as a tool to humiliate or isolate the person.